My name is Bella Mitchell, and at 32 years old I never expected to watch my 10-year career implode in front of 499 coworkers. As FinTech Solutions Senior Database Administrator, I built the system that processes billions in transactions daily. When Rebecca fired me that Thursday morning, she had no idea I had implemented a failsafe protocol that would bring everything crashing down exactly 15 minutes later. The look on her face when those screens turned red was worth every second of humiliation. If you're watching this from a corporate office, hit that like button and subscribe. You might need what I'm about to share when corporate loyalty shows its true colors. I've always had a natural talent for databases. Even in college, while other computer science students gravitated toward flasher fields like AI or game development, I found beauty in the organized chaos of data structures. The way relationships between tables could mirror the complexity of real-world connections fascinated me. I graduated with honors from MIT. And while my classmates chased jobs at Google or Microsoft, I saw potential in a tiny financial technology startup called FinTech Solutions. When I joined, we were just 10 people working out of a converted warehouse in Boston. Marcus Reynolds, the founder, had this infectious vision about revolutionizing financial transactions for small to medium businesses. He wasn't a technical person himself, but he understood the market gap. What he needed was someone who could build the data architecture that would make his vision possible. "We need something scalable," he told me during my interview. "Something that can handle thousands of transactions now, but millions later when we grow. Can you build that?" I said yes without hesitation. What followed were 3 years of 18-hour days, pizza dinners at my desk, and code that invaded my dreams. I built their proprietary financial transaction system from scratch, optimizing every query, designing redundancies that competitors couldn't match. The Transact Pro system, as we named it, became the backbone of everything FinTech offered its clients. Marcus and I worked closely in those early days. He'd bring me coffee at midnight, and we'd whiteboard new features until sunrise. When we landed our first major client, a regional bank with 80 branches, he brought champagne to my desk first. "This wouldn't be possible without you, Bella," he said, and I believed him. The company grew rapidly after that. 20 employees became 50, then 100. We moved to a gleaming downtown office with views of the harbor. By year 5, we had 300 employees and processed over $4 billion in transactions annually. My database architecture scaled beautifully, just as I had promised. My personal life took a back seat during those years. Relationships fizzled when dates couldn't understand why I would check server alerts during dinner. My apartment became little more than a place to shower and occasionally sleep. FinTech was my baby, my creation, my identity. I declined 3 job offers from competitors, each offering substantially more money. Loyalty mattered to me, and Marcus always promised that my dedication would be rewarded when the big payoff came. Everything changed in year 7. With over 400 employees and significant market share, the board decided we needed experienced leadership to take us to the next level. Marcus remained CEO, but suddenly found himself surrounded by executives from larger tech companies and financial institutions. Among them was Rebecca Taylor, hired as VP of Operations. From her first day, she made it clear that she viewed the original team as quaint relics rather than valuable assets. She had come from Goldman Sachs and made frequent references to how things worked in real companies. Her designer suits and cutting remarks became infamous around the office. Rebecca and I clashed immediately. During her first technical overview meeting, she interrupted my explanation of our database architecture. "This all seems needlessly complex," she said, tapping her manicured nails on the conference table. "We should explore off-the-shelf solutions that other enterprises use. This homegrown approach creates unnecessary risk." I explained that our customized system was actually our competitive advantage, that it processed transactions 40% faster than industry standards. She smiled thinly and made a note on her tablet. After the meeting, she didn't speak directly to me for 2 weeks. The company culture shifted rapidly under the new leadership team. Collaborative problem-solving gave way to territorial department heads. The open-door policy disappeared behind layers of middle management. Marcus began using words like synergy and vertical integration that would have made us laugh in the early days. I still had my team, though it had grown to 15 database specialists. They respected my expertise, and we maintained the collaborative spirit within our group. But increasingly, I sensed that the new executive team viewed us as a cost center rather than the foundation of the company's success. When Rebecca hired Tyler Johnson as Director of Data Strategy, reporting to her instead of me, the message couldn't have been clearer. Tyler was 28, with an MBA and a year at Microsoft on his resume. He knew buzzwords but couldn't explain the difference between a primary and foreign key. Yet suddenly he was included in leadership meetings that I was no longer invited to. "It's just about creating a more streamlined reporting structure," Marcus explained when I questioned him about it. His eyes didn't quite meet mine, and he kept glancing at his phone as we talked. The Marcus I knew from the early days was disappearing before my eyes, replaced by someone I barely recognized. I started having trouble sleeping, lying awake, wondering how I'd become a stranger in the company I helped build. But I still had my system, my architecture, my code. No matter what the new leadership thought of me personally, they couldn't deny that I had created the technological heart of fine-tech solutions. At least that's what I told myself, as the company continued to change around me. The first concrete sign that something was seriously wrong came 6 months after Rebecca's arrival. I received a calendar notification for the quarterly technology planning meeting, which I had always led only to discover it had been rescheduled without my knowledge. When I showed up to the original meeting room, it was empty. I found the relocated meeting already in progress in a conference room on the executive floor. Through the glass walls, I could see Tyler presenting slides about database architecture. My slides with my name removed from them. Rebecca noticed me standing outside and gave me a small, satisfied smile before turning her attention back to Tyler. When I finally gained access to the meeting minutes later that day, I discovered that Tyler had been credited with several optimizations I had implemented the previous quarter. Even more alarming, there was discussion of a system modernization initiative that would reduce dependency on legacy custom architecture, a clear reference to the system I had built. That same week, I tried to schedule my regular one-on-one with Marcus, something we'd done monthly for years. His assistant informed me that he was streamlining his direct reports and suggested I should meet with Tyler instead. 7 years of partnership dismissed in a form email. I decided to be proactive and scheduled time with Rebecca directly. Her assistant gave me 15 minutes at 8:30 in the morning before official office hours. "I'm concerned about the direction of the technology planning discussions," I told her once I'd squeezed into the small visitor chair in her expansive office. "There seem to be fundamental misunderstandings about the architecture of our system and why it was designed this way." Rebecca sighed and checked her watch. "Bella, I understand you feel ownership over the current system. That's natural. But FinTech has outgrown its startup phase. We need enterprise solutions, not custom code that only one person fully understands." "That's not accurate," I countered. "My entire team understands the architecture. I've documented everything extensively. And our custom solution is precisely why we can offer faster transaction processing than competitors. She smiled in a way that didn't reach her eyes. Tyler has been researching alternatives that would maintain performance while reducing our vulnerability. She emphasized the last word, making her meaning clear. I was the vulnerability. As I left her office, a notification popped up on my phone, an access alert. Someone had attempted to use my credentials to access the core system architecture files. The attempt had been blocked by our security protocols, which required biometric confirmation for such sensitive areas. This wasn't just office politics anymore. Someone was trying to access my work without my knowledge. I immediately went to my computer and implemented additional security measures, creating logs of all access attempts to the core system. I also began reviewing previous access logs and discovered multiple attempts over the past month, all during times I wasn't in the office. That night I stayed late and created what I would later call the failsafe protocol. It was technically a form of digital dead man's switch, though I didn't think of it in those terms at the time. I integrated it deeply into the database architecture, disguising it as routine maintenance code. In essence, I programmed the system to require my biometric authentication every 24 hours. Without it, certain primary key relationships would dissolve, rendering the databases temporarily unusable until properly restored. It wasn't meant as sabotage, not really. I told myself it was a security measure to prevent unauthorized changes to the architecture. If anyone tried to remove me from the system or lock me out, there would be immediate consequences that would force them to bring me back in. I documented the protocol exhaustively, but kept the documentation secure in my personal encrypted cloud storage, just in case. The following week, I noticed Tyler shadowing me in meetings, asking detailed questions about system architecture and access protocols. He took copious notes and frequently stepped out to make phone calls. In one database management meeting, he asked specifically about primary key management and disaster recovery procedures. Warning bells rang in my head. At the same time, Marcus became increasingly difficult to reach. When I finally cornered him after a company all-hands meeting, he seemed distracted and uncomfortable. "I'm hearing some concerns about access restrictions and documentation," he said, repeating talking points that sounded suspiciously like Rebecca's voice. "The team feels you're creating unnecessary dependencies on yourself." "That's not true, Marcus. I've documented everything. What's really going on? We've known each other for almost a decade. Talk to me." Something flickered in his eyes, a moment of the old Marcus. "It's complicated, Bella. The board is pushing for certain changes. Rebecca has made some compelling arguments about modernization. Just try to be a team player, okay? This transition phase won't last forever." But his eyes said something different. This wasn't temporary, and we both knew it. I began documenting everything, backing up emails, recording meetings, when legal keeping detailed logs of all system changes and access attempts. I also started updating my resume, though the thought of leaving FinTech still felt like betrayal. The isolation grew worse. Colleagues who had been friends began to keep their distance, sensing that I had fallen out of favor with leadership. Lunch invitations stopped. Conversations ended when I approached. I became a workplace pariah, marked for removal, but too knowledgeable to discard immediately. Then came the final warning sign. I attempted to access the system architecture documentation I had created and maintained for years, only to be met with an access denied message. I had been locked out of my own creation. When I requested restoration of access, Tyler sent a company-wide email about streamlining access privileges for security compliance. The message was unmistakable. They were preparing to remove me entirely, but first they needed to extract what I knew. Rebecca's campaign against me became more overt in the following weeks. I started receiving formal emails documenting concerns about my performance, each one vague enough to be defensible, but establishing a paper trail nonetheless. It has been noted that documentation for system updates completed on 3/15 was submitted 2 days late. Read one such email, conveniently ignoring that I had been pulled into 3 emergency client meetings that week by Tyler himself. Team members have expressed concerns about communication delays, stated another, without specifying which team members or which communications. I responded to each with detailed explanations and documentation copying human resources and Marcus each time. HR sent automated responses. Marcus never replied at all. The IT department underwent a sudden restructuring which primarily seemed designed to dilute my authority. My direct reports were redistributed among 3 newly created teams, each led by someone who reported to Tyler. My role was redefined as database architecture consultant, a title that sounded prestigious but carried no actual authority. During this restructuring, Rebecca introduced Alan Faulkner, an external consultant from a firm called Tech Reform Partners. Alan was presented as an efficiency expert who would evaluate our technical operations. He began shadowing me immediately, clipboard in hand, noting every keystroke and decision. "I'm just here to understand workflow," he assured me with a smile that reminded me of a documentary I'd once seen about great white sharks. "Rebecca wants to make sure all our processes are optimized." I noticed Alan taking particular interest in my database management techniques. He asked pointed questions about backup procedures, disaster recovery protocols, and especially about the security measures I had implemented. Each evening after he left, I checked the access logs and found attempts to reach restricted areas of the system. 2 weeks into Alan's evaluation, I discovered a draft proposal in a mistakenly accessible shared folder. It outlined a plan to outsource database management to Tech Reform Partners, Alan's company, at a cost that was allegedly 30% less than current operations. The document included a timeline that called for knowledge transfer completion, followed by redundancy elimination, corporate speak for firing me after I had trained my replacements. I printed the document and tried once again to meet with Marcus. His assistant blocked me physically standing from her desk when I attempted to walk toward his office. "He's in meetings all day, Bella. Perhaps Tyler can help you with any technical concerns." "This isn't technical," I said, holding up the printout. "This is about the future of the company, about my future." Her expression softened slightly. "I really can't let you in without an appointment, and his calendar is booked solid for the next 3 weeks. 3 weeks. According to the document in my hand, that would be too late. As I walked back to my desk, I received a text message from a number I didn't recognize. "Coffee, across street, 10 minutes. Come alone." I hesitated but decided I had little to lose. In the lobby, I passed Tyler and Rebecca deep in conversation, their voices hushed, expressions serious. They didn't notice me leaving. At the coffee shop, I found Thomas Sullivan, one of our senior system administrators, sitting in a corner booth. Thomas had been with the company almost as long as I had, but kept a lower profile. We had always had a good professional relationship, though we weren't particularly close. "Sorry for the cloak and dagger," he said as I sat down. "I didn't want this conversation on company channels or devices." He slid his phone across the table, showing me an email from Rebecca to the IT leadership team excluding me. It outlined plans for a personnel transition at the upcoming quarterly all-hands meeting. My name was specifically mentioned. "They're going to fire you publicly," Thomas said, his voice low. "Rebecca wants to make an example about the consequences of not embracing the company's new direction." He made air quotes with his fingers, looking disgusted. "It's scheduled for next Thursday's meeting. They've already got security briefed to escort you out." I felt strangely calm as the final piece fell into place. "Why are you telling me this?" Thomas shrugged. "Because it's wrong. You built this place. And because they've been trying to get me to duplicate your access protocols without success. I've been stalling, but they'll find someone who won't." I thanked him for the warning and returned to the office with a clear sense of purpose. I had 1 week to prepare both emotionally and technically. That night, I verified my failsafe protocol, ensuring it was undetectable and would activate automatically 15 minutes after my access credentials were terminated. I also backed up all evidence of what had been happening, including Thomas's warning. For the next week, I came to work as usual, acting as if nothing had changed. I answered Alan's questions, pleasantly documented processes as requested, and even helped Tyler resolve a client issue he couldn't handle. All the while, I was mentally preparing to walk out of the building for the last time. I packed personal items, gradually taking home a few things each evening so it wouldn't be obvious. I updated my LinkedIn profile and reached out to a few trusted contacts in the industry. And I made peace with what was coming, the public humiliation designed to break me professionally. By Wednesday night, my desk contained only company property, except for one family photo I planned to carry out with me. I wrote an email to Marcus scheduled to send automatically the day after my termination, attaching evidence of Rebecca's actions and expressing my disappointment in his failure to stand by me. I didn't expect it to change anything, but I needed him to know that I knew exactly what had happened. That night I slept surprisingly well, better than I had in months. The clarity of certainty replaced the anxiety of suspicion. Tomorrow would be difficult, even painful, but at least the pretense would be over. And 15 minutes after they cut my access, they would discover exactly how essential I truly was. Thursday morning arrived with deceptive normalcy. The quarterly all-hands meeting was scheduled for 10 o'clock in the main auditorium, a space large enough to accommodate all 500 employees. I arrived early and chose a seat near an exit, placing my small box of remaining personal items under the chair. The auditorium filled gradually with excited chatter. These meetings typically included recognition of top performers, announcements of new clients, and sometimes hints about future products. Free company-branded merchandise was usually distributed, adding to the festive atmosphere. Marcus took the stage first, welcoming everyone and sharing impressive growth numbers from the previous quarter. He seemed relaxed and confident, giving no indication of what was to come. After 20 minutes of business updates, he introduced Rebecca for some important team announcements. Rebecca walked to center stage in a crisp navy suit, her expression serious but with a hint of satisfaction around her eyes. She began with announcements about 2 promotions and a new client acquisition. Then her tone shifted. "Before we continue celebrating our successes, we need to address a serious situation that has come to leadership's attention," she said, her voice taking on a grave quality. "Bella Mitchell, would you please join me on stage?" A murmur ran through the crowd as heads turned toward me. I took a deep breath, stood, and walked calmly to the stage, conscious of 499 pairs of eyes following my progress. My heart pounded, but I kept my expression neutral as I took my place beside Rebecca. Bella has been with FinTech Solutions for 10 years. Rebecca began turning to face the audience rather than me. During that time, she has played a role in developing our database systems. A role, not created from scratch or architected entirely, just a role. The deliberate minimization of my contribution was the first cut. Recently, our security team has discovered some concerning activities, she continued. Unauthorized access protocols, undocumented system modifications, deliberate obfuscation of critical architecture elements. The murmuring grew louder. I kept my eyes focused on a point at the back of the auditorium, not giving her the satisfaction of a reaction. I could see Marcus from the corner of my eye standing off to the side, studying his shoes. "We have conclusive evidence," Rebecca said, gesturing to the large screen behind us, which filled with what appeared to be code snippets highlighted in red, that Bella has been creating intentional dependencies to make herself indispensable, effectively holding company systems hostage to her continued employment. The code displayed was actually standard security protocol implementation, but displayed out of context, and with ominous red highlighting, it looked suspicious to non-technical eyes. I noticed Tyler in the front row, nodding solemnly, as if confirming Rebecca's claims. This behavior constitutes a breach of both company policy and the trust placed in senior technical staff. Rebecca continued, her voice rising with practiced indignation. After thorough investigation and documentation, the executive team has unanimously decided to terminate Bella's employment, effective immediately. A gasp rippled through the audience. Public firings weren't part of company culture. At least they hadn't been before Rebecca's arrival. Even those who had come to distance themselves from me looked shocked at the spectacle. Rebecca turned to me now, extending her hand. "Your access credentials have already been deactivated. Please surrender your company ID and keycard." I reached into my pocket, removed the items, and placed them in her outstretched hand without speaking. Her eyes narrowed slightly, perhaps disappointed that I wasn't breaking down or causing a scene. "Security will escort you to collect any remaining personal belongings before leaving the premises," she added, gesturing to the back of the room where 2 security guards stood waiting. I finally spoke, keeping my voice level and just loud enough for the microphone to catch. "That won't be necessary. I have everything I need right here." I gestured to the small box under my chair in the audience. Rebecca seemed momentarily thrown by my composure, but recovered quickly. "Nevertheless, standard protocol will be followed." She turned back to the audience. "Let this serve as a reminder that no individual is more important than our collective mission and values. Now let's move on to some exciting new initiatives." As she launched into a description of upcoming projects, I descended the stage steps, retrieved my box, and walked toward the exit where Patrick, one of our longtime security guards, waited. His eyes conveyed silent apology as he gestured for me to precede him out the door. In the hallway, Patrick spoke quietly. "I'm supposed to watch you clean out your desk, but there's nothing there. They already had me check this morning." "I know," I replied. "I've been removing things gradually all week." He nodded, understanding dawning. "You knew this was coming." Yes. Patrick had been with the company nearly as long as I had. We'd shared many early morning conversations when I'd worked through the night and he'd arrived for the first shift. "This isn't right," he said as we walked toward the lobby. "After everything you've done for this place." I smiled slightly. "Thank you, Patrick. Some things will work themselves out." He escorted me to the main entrance where I signed a form confirming I had removed all personal property. As the glass doors closed behind me, I checked my watch. It was 10:47 a.m. By my calculations, system alerts would begin at approximately 11:02 a.m., 15 minutes, after my credentials had been officially deactivated in the system. I walked across the street to the same coffee shop where Thomas had warned me and took a seat by the window with a clear view of the fine tech building. I ordered a latte, opened my personal laptop, and waited. From my window seat at Java Junction, I had a perfect view of FineTech's glass facade. The quarterly meeting would be wrapping up soon, with employees returning to their desks, unaware of what was about to unfold. I checked my watch again, 10:58 a.m. I opened my personal email and found what I expected: an automated notification that my company access had been officially terminated at 10:45 a.m., 2 minutes after I had handed my ID to Rebecca. The failsafe countdown had begun immediately. The coffee shop was quiet, just a few remote workers typing away, and a couple of students with textbooks spread across their table. None of them knew that across the street a multi-billion-dollar financial system was minutes away from grinding to a halt. I sipped my latte and counted down in my head. At precisely 11:00 a.m., I saw the first employees exiting the building. Chatting and laughing quarterly meeting concluded. Some headed toward the coffee shop, and I angled my laptop screen away from the door, pulling up a document to appear busy. 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. Something's happening with the transaction system. Error codes everywhere. I didn't respond. At 1:03 a.m., I noticed people who had just left the building hurrying back inside, some breaking into runs as they answered their phones. Through the glass walls of the lobby, I could see security guards speaking urgently into their radios. What they were experiencing was the first phase of the failsafe protocol primary key authentication failure. Without my biometric verification, the system had begun dissolving the relationships between database tables, essentially removing the connective tissue of the entire data architecture. Transactions would be failing, customer data becoming inaccessible, trading platforms freezing. Each minute of downtime would cost the company approximately $5 million in lost transactions, not counting the damage to client relationships and market reputation. By 1:05 a.m., the scene across the street had transformed into visible panic. Through the windows of the upper floors, I could see people gathered around monitors gesturing frantically. The glass walls that Rebecca had insisted on for transparency now provided me with a perfect view of the chaos unfolding. My phone began ringing with calls from unknown numbers, presumably company lines. I declined them all. Then a call came from Thomas, which I answered. "What the hell is happening?" he asked, his voice hushed and stressed. "Every system is showing red alerts. The main database is rejecting all queries with primary key missing errors. Nobody can figure it out." "Sounds serious," I replied neutrally. Thomas was silent for a moment. "This is your failsafe, isn't it? The thing they've been trying to find for months." "I implemented certain security protocols to protect system integrity," I said carefully. "Standard practice, really." "Rebecca is losing her mind," he said, and I could hear the hint of satisfaction in his voice. "She's screaming at Tyler, who keeps insisting this should be impossible." In the background of the call, I could hear alarms and raised voices. Someone was shouting about customer calls flooding the support line. "They're looking for you," Thomas added. "Security's been sent to your apartment." "I'm closer than they think," I replied. "How bad is it?" "Bad. The trading platform is completely down. Client portals are inaccessible. Even the internal communication system is failing because it can't authenticate users against the main database. Marcus is on the phone with the board right now." I heard the phrase existential threat to the company. As we spoke, I watched more activity through the windows. On one of the upper floors, I could see a conference room where Rebecca was gesturing wildly, surrounded by technical staff staring at laptops. Tyler stood against the wall looking shocked. How long would it take to rebuild from backups? Thomas asked. Theoretically, about 72 hours of nonstop work, I answered honestly. But that assumes you have someone who understands the entire architecture and can rebuild all the relationship mappings correctly. So basically, only you. Basically. A new flurry of activity caught my attention. Rebecca had left the conference room and was heading toward the elevator with 2 security guards. Her expression, visible even from across the street, was a mixture of fury and panic. "I think you're about to have company," Thomas said, apparently watching the same scene from inside. "Rebecca just announced she knows where you are. Said something about seeing your laptop on the cafe security camera feed." I hadn't considered that possibility. FineTech had access to exterior security cameras as part of the building's integrated security system. Someone monitoring the feeds must have spotted me. "I should go," I told Thomas. "What are you going to do?" he asked. I watched Rebecca storm out of the front entrance, scanning the street. "I'm going to finish my coffee," I replied, "and then I'm going to negotiate from a position of strength." As I ended the call, my phone immediately rang again. This time it was Marcus. After a moment's hesitation, I answered. "Bella," he said, his voice strained, "we need you to come back immediately. There's been some kind of catastrophic system failure." "Yes, I heard there might be some issues," I replied calmly. "Interesting timing." "This isn't a game," he snapped. "We're losing millions by the minute. Clients are threatening to pull their business. The board is talking about liability. It wasn't a game when Rebecca spent months undermining me, either," I said. "Or when you allowed it to happen. Or when you both decided to humiliate me in front of the entire company based on fabricated evidence." Marcus was silent for a moment. "What do you want?" Before I could answer, the coffee shop door flew open, and Rebecca stormed in, face flushed with anger, the 2 security guards trailing behind her, looking uncomfortable. She spotted me and marched directly to my table. "What have you done?" she demanded loudly, causing other patrons to look up in alarm. I ended the call with Marcus and set my phone down. "Hello, Rebecca." "Coffee," I gestured to the empty chair across from me. "The entire system is collapsing," she hissed, leaning across the table. "Fix it, now." "I don't work for FineTech anymore," I replied. "You made that abundantly clear about 20 minutes ago in front of 499 witnesses." Rebecca's expression shifted from anger to something closer to desperation. "We're losing $5 million every minute. Client data is inaccessible. If this continues, the company won't survive the day." "That sounds like a significant problem for the executive team to address," I said, taking another sip of my latte. "Perhaps Tyler can help. Or Alan from Tech Reform Partners. They seemed very interested in understanding my unnecessary complexity and outdated approaches." One of the security guards received a call and stepped away to answer it. Rebecca watched him anxiously, then turned back to me. "What do you want?" she asked, echoing Marcus's question, but with the harshness stripped from her voice. "For starters, respect," I replied. "Recognition of the value I've created, and protection from the kind of underhanded tactics you've employed for months." Rebecca's phone rang and she checked the screen. "It's Marcus," she said, answering and putting it on speaker. Rebecca Marcus's voice came through clearly. "Is Bella with you?" "Yes," she replied. "The board is on the line," he said. "They've authorized me to offer Bella reinstatement with a promotion to Chief Technology Officer Board Observer status and a compensation package commensurate with executive leadership." Rebecca's face tightened, but she said nothing. "That's a start," I replied to Marcus. but I have conditions of my own. Through the coffee shop window, I could see more employees pouring out of the fine tech, building some on phones, others gathering in concerned groups on the sidewalk. The system collapse was accelerating. "Name them," Marcus said. I took a moment to gather my thoughts, aware of Rebecca's intense stare and the curious glances from other coffee shop patrons. "First, I want Rebecca removed from the company, effective immediately," I said calmly. "Her deliberate campaign to undermine me and other original team members has damaged the company culture and created unnecessary risk." Rebecca's face flushed with anger. "That's ridiculous. You can't possibly expect." "Second," I continued as if she hadn't spoken, "I want a public apology from the executive team for today's spectacle delivered to the entire company with the same audience that witnessed my termination." "Bella, be reasonable," Marcus's voice came through the phone. "We can discuss title and compensation, but personnel changes of that magnitude. The system will remain inoperable without my intervention," I stated flatly. "Every minute we debate costs the company another $5 million. Based on my calculation, that's $25 million lost since this conversation began." The security guard who had stepped away returned to the table. "Sir," he addressed Marcus through the phone, "I've just received word that client support is reporting major banks threatening to terminate their contracts if the system isn't restored within the hour." I heard Marcus exhale sharply. "Rebecca, step outside, please." She looked ready to object, but seemed to think better of it. With a last venomous glance at me, she moved toward the door with one of the guards. "Bella," Marcus said once she was out of earshot, "what you've done could be considered criminal, computer fraud, sabotage. What I've done is implement standard security protocols," I corrected. "Every change is documented in the technical specifications I've maintained for years, which Rebecca and Tyler have been deliberately kept from accessing. I'd be happy to review those documents with the board's technical committee." There was a pause, and I heard muffled voices as Marcus apparently conferred with others. "The board has approved your conditions," he finally said. "Rebecca will be removed. A public apology will be issued. You'll be named CTO with board representation and an equity package. Now please come back and fix the system." "I'll need one more condition in writing," I said. "A 5-year employment contract with clear protection against retaliatory action. I've prepared a draft which I'll email to you and the board chair immediately." "Fine," Marcus sounded defeated. "Just stop the bleeding." I sent the email I had prepared days earlier, containing a contract template that my attorney friend had helped draft. While waiting for confirmation, I watched Rebecca through the window. She was pacing on the sidewalk, gesticulating angrily during what appeared to be a heated phone conversation. 5 minutes later, Marcus called back. "The contract is approved. Legal has reviewed it, and we've signed. It's been countersigned by the board chair." "I'll be right over," I said, gathering my laptop. As I approached the fine-tech building flanked by the remaining security guard, I saw employees watching through the glass lobby, their expressions a mixture of confusion and hope. Word had clearly spread that I might be returning to fix the crisis. Rebecca stood near the entrance, arms crossed, face rigid with suppressed rage. Marcus had emerged from the elevator and was waiting beside her. The contrast between their expressions was striking. Marcus looked humbled and anxious, while Rebecca seemed barely able to contain her fury. "The board has requested you remain until the system is stabilized," Rebecca Marcus explained as we approached. "After that, we'll announce transition plans." She nodded stiffly, not meeting my eyes. We rode the elevator in tense silence to the executive floor, where the technical team had gathered in the largest conference room. Screens around the room displayed error messages, and failed system reports. Tyler sat slumped in a chair, looking defeated, while Thomas managed a team attempting diagnostic measures. When I entered, all eyes turned to me. The room fell silent. Bella has agreed to return, as our new Chief Technology Officer, Marcus, announced. She'll be leading efforts to restore our systems. Thomas couldn't hide a small smile. Several others looked relieved, though Tyler seemed to shrink further into his chair. I set my laptop down at the head of the conference table. The system is experiencing a cascading authentication failure triggered by a security protocol, I explained. It requires specific biometric validation to restore primary key relationships. Why wasn't this documented in the system specifications? Tyler asked, a last feeble attempt to shift blame. It was I replied calmly. In the Level 1 security documentation that you and Rebecca restricted my team from accessing 3 months ago. Page 37, Section 5.4. Continuous authentication requirements for database integrity. Thomas nodded in confirmation. I remember reviewing that documentation during the last security audit. Rebecca remained silent, her career effectively over, while Marcus looked increasingly uncomfortable as the extent of the deliberate sabotage against me became clear to everyone in the room. I connected my laptop to the main system and began the authentication process. A fingerprint scanner, voice recognition, and a series of complex passwords known only to me were required. As I completed, each step monitors around the room began changing from red error messages to yellow processing alerts. Full restoration will take approximately 30 minutes, I explained. The system needs to rebuild relationship tables and verify data integrity. Marcus looked relieved. I'll inform the board and our major clients that we're on the path to resolution. As he stepped out to make calls, I addressed the technical team. I'll need a complete system audit once we're back online. Thomas, please organize teams to verify all client data is intact and transactions are processing correctly. Thomas nodded, already mobilizing team members. Rebecca finally spoke, her voice cold. You won't get away with this. What you did is corporate terrorism. I turned to her calmly. What I did was protect company assets from unauthorized access and potential sabotage exactly as my job required. Every measure I implemented is industry standard and fully documented. I'd be happy to review those standards with any technical or legal authority. She had no response, knowing that any investigation would reveal her own unethical actions rather than any wrongdoing on my part. As the system gradually returned to normal function, Marcus returned with news that the board chair would be arriving shortly to personally thank me for resolving the crisis. Rebecca was quietly escorted to human resources to begin her exit process. By early afternoon, the system was fully operational again. Clients had been assured that the technical difficulty was resolved, and preliminary damage assessments suggested we would retain most, if not all, major accounts. At 3 o'clock, Marcus called an impromptu company meeting in the same auditorium where I had been fired hours earlier. Standing before the assembled employees, he delivered the promised public apology. Earlier today, a serious error in judgment was made regarding one of our most valuable team members, he began. Based on incomplete and incorrect information, Bella Mitchell was temporarily removed from her position. That decision has been reversed, and I'm pleased to announce that Bella has accepted the role of Chief Technology Officer with a seat on our executive leadership team and board observer status. Murmurs of surprise and approval spread through the crowd. I stood to the side, accepting nods and smiles from colleagues who had distanced themselves from me during Rebecca's campaign. but now seemed eager to reconnect. Furthermore, Marcus continued, Rebecca Taylor is no longer with the company, effective immediately. We are committed to rebuilding the collaborative, innovative culture that has been our foundation since the beginning. As the meeting concluded, employees came forward to congratulate me, some offering apologies for not speaking up sooner. I accepted graciously, understanding the difficult position many had been in under Rebecca's leadership. By the end of the day, I had moved into my new office on the executive floor directly across from Marcus's. The balance of power had shifted dramatically in just 8 hours, from public humiliation to vindication and promotion. As I settled behind my new desk, Thomas knocked on the open door. "Quite a day," he said, stepping inside. "Congratulations, Madam CTO." "Thank you for the warning," I replied sincerely, "and for your support during the recovery." He nodded. "I'm just glad justice prevailed for once." After a pause, he added, "Did you really plan for all of this to happen exactly this way?" I smiled. "Let's just say I created a contingency for a worst-case scenario. The rest worked itself out." Thomas laughed. "Remind me never to get on your bad side." As he turned to leave, he added, "By the way, Tyler just cleared out his desk. Apparently decided a fresh start might be in order." I nodded, feeling neither satisfaction nor regret at the news. The day's events had not been about revenge, but about justice and self-preservation. As Thomas left, I turned to my computer and began drafting plans for a more secure, more collaborative, fine-tech solutions. One where talent would be respected and protected, rather than exploited and discarded. Walking into the fine-tech building the next morning felt surreal. Just 24 hours earlier, I had been escorted out in disgrace. Now employees nodded respectfully or offered congratulations as I made my way to the executive floor. My new office, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and sleek modern furniture, symbolized the dramatic shift in my professional standing. The first week, as CTO, was intense but productive. I focused on 3 immediate priorities: stabilizing the system, rebuilding team morale, and establishing clear communication channels that would prevent future disconnects between technical reality and executive decisions. Rebecca's departure created a ripple effect throughout the company. Several of her closest allies chose to leave, while others quickly realigned themselves with the new power structure. Tyler submitted his resignation the day after the system collapse, citing personal reasons rather than acknowledging his role in the attempted coup against me. Marcus and I established a new working relationship, more formal than our early startup days, but far more balanced than the recent past. He seemed genuinely chastened by how close the company had come to disaster and made efforts to reconnect with the technical teams he had increasingly ignored. "I should have trusted you," he admitted during one of our first one-on-one meetings as peers. "You were right about the importance of our custom architecture, and I let myself be convinced otherwise by people who didn't understand what we built." "Why did you distance yourself?" I asked the question that had bothered me for months. "We built this company together, Marcus." He sighed, looking out the window. The board kept pushing for professional management. Investors wanted familiar faces from big companies. Rebecca came with Goldman Sachs credentials and convinced everyone she could streamline operations. I started believing that maybe we had outgrown our startup approaches. "And me," I added. "Yes," he admitted. "And you. It was wrong, and I nearly lost everything because of it." That conversation began a healing process, not just between Marcus and me, but throughout the company. We instituted a weekly technical overview for the executive team and board members, ensuring that key decision-makers understood the technological foundation of our business rather than treating it as a black box. I also focused on rebuilding my team, promoting Thomas to Director of System Integrity, and recruiting back several talented engineers who had left during Rebecca's tenure. We created new documentation protocols and distributed system knowledge more broadly, though certain security measures still required limited access. The public apology had helped restore my standing, but rebuilding trust with colleagues took time. Some approached me cautiously at first, perhaps wondering if I harbored resentment for their silence during my ostracism. I made a conscious decision not to dwell on past slights, focusing instead on creating a more supportive culture moving forward. I understand why people kept their distance. I told Thomas over lunch one day about a month after the incident. Self-preservation is a powerful instinct. Still, he argued more people should have spoken up. The way they treated you was wrong. What matters is what we build now, I replied. A company where that kind of targeting can't happen again to anyone. The system failure incident, as it came to be known internally, became something of a corporate legend. New employees heard various versions during their orientation, each slightly more dramatic than the last. I neither confirmed nor denied the more colorful details, allowing the story to serve its purpose as a cautionary tale about respecting technical expertise and institutional knowledge. On a personal level, the experience transformed me. The professional humiliation followed by such decisive vindication freed me from the constant need to prove my worth. I had always defined myself by my technical abilities and contributions, but now I recognized that my value extended beyond what I could build or fix. The most surprising change came in my relationship with Marcus. After the initial reconciliation, we established a more honest, balanced partnership than we had even in the early days. As equals on the executive team, we could challenge each other directly without fear of repercussion, leading to better decisions for the company. 6 months after becoming CTO, I presented to the board a comprehensive security and succession plan that included training multiple team members on all aspects of the system architecture. The failsafe protocol was officially documented and modified to require any 2 of 5 authorized employees removing the single point of dependency that had both endangered and saved the company. "You're deliberately making yourself less essential," Marcus observed after the board meeting. "Most executives try to make themselves irreplaceable." "Being irreplaceable means being trapped," I replied. "I want FinTech to succeed because of the systems and culture we build, not because they can't function without me personally." As we approached the 1-year anniversary of what some employees had dubbed Red Screen Day, FinTech had not only recovered, but thrived. Our client base had grown by 30%, and we were preparing for a major expansion into international markets. The experience taught me invaluable lessons about corporate politics, self-worth, and resilience. I learned that technical excellence alone isn't enough in complex organizations, that documenting and communicating value is as important as creating it. I discovered that preparing for betrayal isn't paranoid when warning signs appear, and that leverage carefully applied can balance power more effectively than appeals to fairness or loyalty. Most importantly, I learned that real strength comes not from controlling systems or information, but from building something so valuable that its worth cannot be denied even by those who might wish to diminish you. As I look back now from my corner office, watching new employees collaborate with veterans on projects we never could have imagined, in our warehouse days, I feel a deep sense of satisfaction. The humiliation of being fired in front of 499 colleagues has transformed into a story of resilience and vindication. A reminder that knowledge carefully cultivated and strategically deployed remains the ultimate power in our digital world. If you've ever found yourself undervalued or pushed aside despite your contributions, I hope my story gives you courage. Know your worth, document your value, and when necessary, be prepared to demonstrate exactly how essential you truly are. The systems we build, whether technical or professional, shape our world in ways others may not recognize until those systems falter. Have you ever been underestimated at work or had to stand up for your value? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story helped you think differently about protecting your professional worth, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, in today's corporate world, your greatest security comes from knowing exactly what you bring to the table and making sure others can't ignore it. Thank you for listening to my journey, and may your own path lead to the recognition you deserve.